This is the Dynasty Roundtable podcast. We are back after a couple weeks off. I hope you won many championships, had many successes in Dynasty. Today, we're going to be talking about the lessons that we learned from the 2025 season. Matt Babich, kind of a trying year, at least for me anyway, and we'll get into it. But how did you wind up in 2025? Did you win a few championships at least, or how did things go for you?
So thankfully for the second straight year, I profited. And thankfully that's because my main redraft league with all my longtime friends from home has probably my favorite payout structure in fantasy football. And so it's $100 buy-in, 12 teams, and second place gets their money back and the rest goes to first. So
I like that.
Yeah, you could essentially like 10x your right or 11x your money if you win that championship. So back-to-back years, I am a champion once again, five-time champion since 2014 in this league. So a lot of bragging rights, some profit. Came in third in another dynasty league. It's actually an orphan I took over as a player profiler patron league, a best ball dynasty league. I actually really enjoy that format. Kind of interested in getting involved in another best ball dynasty league. Okay. But took third in that one as well. So pretty good year for a time where I thought that I had zero chance to be in the money in any single league this year. So I was telling you backstage about the miracle that was my redraft championship, but feels good to be in the green for the second year in a row.
Yeah, I cannot say the same for myself. This is probably, in fact, I'm pretty certain it was the worst fantasy year of my life as far as just like how the teams did and how things went, and we'll get into that more. So this year was rough for me. So I'm glad you won something, because even when I was supposed to win, like I had a team in the championship and I had Derrick Henry, and I somehow wound up losing. That's the kind of year it was for me, just because James Cook didn't do anything. Stafford threw up a stinker in the playoffs. I had Jaden Daniels in that league. Obviously, he was hurt. So anyway,
I have so many dynasty teams that are just in the middle of the pack that I'm still working on, and I need to take some tips probably from my dad, because he won, his one of his two dynasty leagues last year, and then he almost won the Dynasty Roundtable League this year. So my dad quietly, in 4 years of dynasty has improved a ton, and is out here, trying to win championships as well as putting his son to shame, some would say.
Yeah. Shout out to my good buddy Dane. He won both my first dynasty league that I commissioned 3 or 4 years ago now. God, has it been 4 years ago? Yeah, I think it has been now. I think it's either been 3 or 4 years. And he won our Dynasty Roundtable League. So shout out to him. So do you care if I kick things off here with my lessons learned?
Go right into it. Let's do it.
All right, let's kick this off with a bang. Like I said at the top, this fantasy here, hold on. I'm going to need this let me just get this right into the microphone. Oh, that was even a weak sauce crack. I did the little thing where I kind of popped it. I didn't fully crack it. Anyway, I'm going to need to hold on. Yeah, that's better. If you didn't, on the podcast side, I just cracked open a beer. Anyway, that's the kind of year it was for me. I did not do good, and I have 30 dynasty leagues, and I knew some were going to be rebuilding, but I thought, surely I'll make the playoffs in half of them. Nope. I think it was 9 out of 30, which is absolutely awful. And then I had a chance to salvage it at the very end with my highest money dynasty league. I was in the championship. I got off to a great start with Derrick Henry. And then Drake May and others just completely destroyed my chances. So this year, I mean, what could go wrong went wrong. I have a ton of elite quarterbacks. Like I have a bunch of Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. Like I have a lot of teams with those guys, and we'll talk about the elite quarterbacks here in a minute. But it did not go my way this year. And I have to ask myself, and this question I think is good for people to answer, because I'm wondering if I'm in too many leagues. Because when you start to some of the tasks that you have to do, like you have to keep up with waivers, trades, the chats, etc. I have a 1-year-old son now that I didn't have like 5 years ago when I joined some of these dynasty leagues. So I'm in the process of evaluating, okay, I'm in 30 leagues. Is that too many? Am I keeping up with these? Am I managing them the way that I should? It sucks because I feel like a lot of what could have gone wrong went wrong. I have a lot of rookies picks heading into 2026, and a lot of these leagues feel like they're in great shape despite the fact that a lot of them didn't make the playoffs. But I'm asking myself that question, and I'm probably gonna trim back just because my life is in a completely different spot than it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, hell, even 2 or 3 years ago when I entered in all these dynasty leagues. So I'm going through that process right now, and I encourage anybody, if you're in multiple dynasty leagues, if you've had a life change, like, don't be ashamed if you have to trim back, because life happens. And I'm going through the exact process right now. Happy to talk to anybody in the chat if they want my advice. So anywho, it was not a great year for me. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And yeah, I guess that's my first lesson is I think maybe I overextended myself a little bit, and that might have contributed to, the fact that my teams didn't do as well. And I made probably one of the worst trades that I've ever made in Dynasty in your league. It was horrible. Like, it turned out Drake May and Drake London for, what was it? Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, Brandon Ayuk, a first and a second, I think. I think that was the gist of the trade. Oh, you're muted, by the way.
I had gone a long time without doing that. For a second, it looked like it was going to be not as bad as we were clowning you for, because Daniel Jones
they were clowning me. Shout out to all Elite. They were clowning me today. I was watching the chat. I didn't say anything, but I see what's going on. I'm seeing it. All right.
Well, hey, so I, as the commissioner of this league, we had some bad apples and some really bad teams as well. So thankfully, Seth and another one of my buddies from back home, Chase, fell on the sword for a couple of teams. And, as much as we were clowning you, I think one of the things you did was you at least tried to make moves. You came in there and did something instead of being stagnant and just being, another person to fill the void in the league. But I fell on the sword and put forward the league dues for both of those teams to entice a new manager to come in. And I argued that Chase shouldn't have to pay the league dues because he should have to pay the league dues because he got Drake May and Drake London basically on day one of trying to turn his dynasty team around. I feel like that in and of itself, if I would have just shown him, hey, if you join the league, we'll give you this trade, I think he would have done it. I think I could have gotten away.
I'm just trying to save you some money. That's it.
But going back to what you were saying is, I think it's a really good character trait to be able to sit there and say, like, hey, I'm in too many leagues. You don't have to be so prideful to where you're like, no, I made a commitment. I could stick it out. I could do this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, it's fantasy football. And if it starts taking away from life with your kids, life with your family, life at your job, or, to manage the other parts of your life, you're sacrificing sleep and your own health or your own mental well-being. It's not worth it. I mean, we're talking about a guy, Seth, you're in like what, 30 leagues?
Yeah, 30 Dynasty, and I was also in.
So to put more context into the number that is overwhelming him, I think most people out there listening are probably like, whoa. But even if you're in 4 or 5 leagues, like I'm in, close to 10 in redraft and Dynasty combined every year, about 8 Dynasty, like 1 or 2 redraft scattered in there. That's a lot. It's a ton to manage. And there are times where I feel like I'm ready to kind of let go of certain teams. Granted, most of these dynasty leagues I'm in are with some of my friends that I have and that I have, close connections with. So that's keeping me in. But to each their own, just manage your life. And like Seth said, don't be afraid to, cut the cord if you have to.
All right, Mr. Babbage, what was a lesson that you learned this year?
I think we should probably wait a while before victory lapping rookie takes.
Maybe. We might have done that just a bit prematurely.
We might have done that a bit. Other people
Travis
probably did
Hunter,
that a bit. Well, he got
Trevion.
hurt. It's hard to and Trevion's another thing too, that he clearly took a backseat because of his concussion. If you watched like the Jets game, they were not giving him like certain touches. They were very much limiting the amount of contact, or trying to limit the amount of contact he was in. And it makes sense that carried over into, week 18. So I'm not going to say that we were too out in front on Trevion, but there's just a lot of back and forth that happens. Even if we're not necessarily victory lapping something, right? It's Trevion Henderson's not playing that much. And we, the collective, it's, sell Trevion Henderson. This is awful. He's a bust. This is not good. And then he plays and it's like, he's super good. And then he continues to share time with Ramondre. And it's just this roller coaster of like, hey, maybe there's a happy middle ground that doesn't cause us to have a different take or a different outlook every other week. And similarly, Travis Hunter, there's the whole pitfall with how he was used to begin the season. And then he starts ascending, and then he starts falling, and then he gets injured. Jacoby Myers comes in. Like RJ Harvey starts the season not doing anything. So there's a bunch of examples that I could pull just from this class alone. But the main thing is, I could probably even broaden it from wait a while to before victory lapping rookie takes into we need to be patient in year one of rookies. And I'd be interested to kind of maybe even comb through data, but it feels like these rookies are taking a little bit longer to come up every year. Like we continue to see like a normalization of some of these rookies, particularly rookie running backs, not really come on until the second half of the season unless they're in a clear bell cow role. So, right, Quinshon Judkins, Ashton Genty, those were two, or Marion Hampton outside of the injury, were three that were clear. They're going to come in, be a bell cow, get all the touches. And we expected that. The others, while we wanted to say that Trevion was going to be in that group, but Trevion, RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson, these were situations where we should have expected less right out of the gate from these assets. And in the spirit of that, we still would have been wrong with Caleb Johnson, because I don't necessarily know what to take of that situation as of right now. I guess the one thing in his favor, if you can say anything, is that both Kenny Gainwell and Jalen Warren have been pretty good when used this year. The very bad thing is, is he not as good as Kenny Gainwell? Because that would be a very bad first round rookie pick if he turns out to be not as good as Caleb Johnson or Kenny Gainwell. Goodness gracious. But yeah, just we got to take it slower and slower with these rookies before we start panic selling or victory lapping, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I think that contributed to why my teams didn't do so well in 2025, because I'll just keep it a buck. I invested heavily in the 2025 rookie class because I thought it was awesome. Like, I thought Trevion Henderson was awesome. I thought Quinshon was awesome. I thought Travis Hunter, everybody knows who's listening to this channel knows how I felt about Travis Hunter, how you felt about Travis Hunter. Emeka Egbuka, same story. And it wasn't like they were bad. They just, like in the case of Trevion Henderson, it took some time for him to get his touches, and it took a Ramondre Stevenson injury really for him to get a full complement of touches. And now we've seen it, what he can do if he gets a full load, and it's 30 plus fantasy points upside. And, Emeka Egbuka was up and down. Teteroa McMillan was up and down. Ashton Genty was up and down. it's almost like the rookies. You know what I mean? Quinshon Judkins gets hurt. So RJ Harvey didn't really start to produce consistently until the end of the season. So it wasn't like it was bad. It just wasn't consistent enough. And then Tyler Warren, towards the end, he started to fade because of the Daniel Jones injury. And now Colston Loveland looks really good because, Caleb Williams is healthy and developing that connection. So I think there's going to be opportunities to buy back into the 2025 rookie class. And, I kind of wish I wasn't so heavily invested in it because I would love to buy some more shares of Trevion Henderson, Quinshon, etc., RJ Harvey, even Caleb Johnson. I think Caleb Johnson is going to get an opportunity at some point. He just so happened to, I don't know why they were putting him on kickoff, but, he had the boneheaded mistake on that kickoff. I don't know if that contributed to it. I don't know if it's because he wasn't that great in pass protection. As we noted in our film discussion on Caleb Johnson, we love the talent, but it's like, can he figure out the pass pro? Clearly, the Steelers had some issues playing him. So I don't know if that was it or not, but that was one of my lessons learned is how good is the 2025 rookie class? I think it's still pretty good. And I know Travis Hunter, it's just like either these guys got hurt or their production was up and down. And so if some people are frustrated by that in your leagues, if they're trying to get out of Quinshon Judkins because they're worried about the injury, Travis Hunter, I would be buying. So that's my takeaway when it comes to the 2025 rookie class. Any thoughts? Otherwise, I'll throw it back to you for your second takeaway.
No, yeah, I think I'm with you. I want to buy this class for sure. I think there's some windows that were probably missed. Or, maybe potential to buy and get even more value on that. I think there's one player in mind that I'm particularly upset that I missed out on the rookie season. And certainly doesn't help that I was emphatically against him throughout the entire process. I believe I said I had something to the effect of I'd rather die than have this player on one of my dynasty teams. And boy, I mean, I have to eat my crow. I think I may already have at some point this season, although when he came aboard, we hadn't been podcasting as much because it was the holiday season. But Tyler Shuck, man, he looks good. He looks good, and he looked good. He made the Saints offense look good. This is something that I believe is extremely impressive. He looked very composed, had the rushing upside. And so I'm calling this takeaway or lesson learned the Shuck theorem. If there is any, and I mean any, day one or day two quarterback that has a mid-second to late third round rookie draft ADP in Superflex leagues, just draft him. Just draft him. Going into single quarterbacks, if that goes from the late second to, late four or late third to late fourth, somewhere around there. I'm in all Superflex, so I'm not exactly sure what that ADP looks like typically, but just take them. This is especially true for Superflex because that quarterback position is the most important position in sports to have in Dynasty to have depth in. And it can be your saving grace if you're a team that really needs to gain rookie picks or future assets, or maybe you have injuries in other places in your team and you need to fill those holes. Having a breadth of quarterbacks is going to help you at some point throughout the season. Imagine a world, Seth. Think about I'm going to list all these quarterbacks. Think about how easy they were to acquire in the offseason. Tyler Shuck, Jacoby Brissett, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
They were very impactful quarterbacks in fantasy football when healthy, and they were all practically free coming into the season. So if there's any day one or two quarterback with that mid-second, late third round ADP, like we saw with Shuck, hell, even Dart's ADP was lower than it should have been. Going back to the previous rookie class, we got Penix and Bo Nix that were pushed way too far down draft boards. Just take them. Just take them. Because that seems to be one of the best bets you can make in Dynasty, especially in Superflex, is just throwing a dart at the highly drafted quarterback.
Well, even going back to Justin Herbert, Jaden Daniels. I remember Jaden Daniels going in the mid first round of that rookie draft. I mean, if you had the 106 and you took Jaden Daniels, I mean, give me a break. Same thing with Bo Nix. If you were sitting at the 111, 112, you had just won the championship and you have the opportunity to draft Bo Nix. Are you kidding me? I wasn't the biggest fan of Bo Nix, but to further your point, I think highly drafted quarterbacks that are connected to successful, proven play callers like a Sean Payton or a Kellen Moore or wherever Clint Kubiak winds up, right? If Clint Kubiak takes, I don't know, the New York Giants job, Jackson Dart should rise up the dynasty rankings as he's already pretty high. But, you know, like situation also matters for those quarterbacks. Like clearly Clint Kubiak is more than capable play caller. So I think you need to chase those situations as well. And I think that's a really good take. I have a ton of Tyler Shuck, but again, did not really arrive until later in the season. But when he did arrive, he was really good. And since week 13 in Miami, quarterback 12 finished that week, quarterback 6 finish, 22.3 fantasy points against Tampa Bay in week 14, 18.1 fantasy points against Carolina, 17.1 fantasy points against the Jets, and then 21.9 fantasy points in championship week. If you had Tyler Shuck in championship week and you started him, you're probably happy with that quarterback performance, top 10 performance there. So my next takeaway is it pertains to the elite quarterbacks because it was a rough season for those quarterbacks. And specifically, I'm talking about Lamar Jackson, as the news that John Harbaugh was fired just came across the wire right before we started recording this. Jalen Hurts, who finished at quarterback 8, but that's not really what we expect from Jalen Hurts. That offense has been weird all season. And then, of course, Joe Burrow injured, Jaden Daniels injured, and Josh Allen was really the only elite quarterback that, you know, returned value at his ADP. And it's going to be interesting to see how the market shakes out because we had a bunch of quarterbacks, including Drake May and Trevor Lawrence, that are on the younger side, especially Drake May, that look legit now. And it's funny how that works when you're put into a situation with Josh McDaniels, who's a competent play caller, or Liam Cohen, who was calling plays for Baker Mayfield when he had an awesome year last year. Now the head coach with Trevor Lawrence, he doesn't have, dumbass Urban Meyer kicking kickers or doing his fake macho bullshit on the sideline. Like, it's amazing what competency can do. And now we have to ask ourselves, do we want to invest in these quarterbacks, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, after a bad year, right? And I still think the answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. Because in 2024, the top 5 quarterbacks were Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, and Jaden Daniels. So 4 out of the 5 elite guys. In 2023, it was Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love. In 2022, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Geno Smith actually snuck in there in 2022, if you can believe that. My point is, this was an outlier year for the elite quarterback, because most of the time when you're even in redraft, like when you're taking one of those quarterbacks in the 3rd round and the 4th round, it's a pretty safe bet that they're going to put up 350 plus, maybe even 400 fantasy points in the case of Lamar in 2024. This year just wasn't one of those years for whatever reason. And it was much better to wait on quarterback. If you invest, if you did what Matt said there, if you were able to, I picked up Jacoby Brissett off the waiver wire in one league. Those kinds of opportunities were out there. If you went out and traded for Matt Stafford before the season, maybe when the narrative surrounding his back injury about 3 weeks before the season kicked off was out there, and that was the reason Puka Nakua's ADP was going down. But the point is, I do think that this was an outlier year, and I'm not afraid to go back and invest in a Joe Burrow and a Jaden Daniels and a Jalen Hurts in a Lamar Jackson. Now, could we have the argument, are these quarterbacks just not good? In the case of Jalen Hurts, I'm going off of past performance. I'm going off of the data that's in front of me. I don't know, there might be some scout out there, some talent evaluator who will tell me, yeah, Jalen Hurts isn't that good of a quarterback. The guy just won a Super Bowl last year, like playing standout ball. So I don't know if I buy that argument. I think that players can have bad years, and there was a somewhat of a Super Bowl hangover with the Eagles. They're still in the freaking playoffs. They're still, they still have a home playoff game against the 49ers. So I don't know if it was all that bad. And I think that we can take this year and really use it to our advantage, because these are, these quarterbacks I think are still elite. There's probably, Drake May and Trevor Lawrence are going to get thrown around in that elite category as well. But I think that there's going to be a discount to be had. And I think the lesson that we need to learn is, don't overreact to what we saw, because this was the outlier of all outliers that I've seen with these quarterbacks.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. You mentioned pretty much all of the different outliers that I would have mentioned. The one thing I'm going to comment, oddly enough, is the Jalen Hurts thing. He's not a bad quarterback. I think anyone who says that is ridiculous. Yeah. He's not an elite passer, but I don't think anyone would argue that he is.
I would argue his downfield passing is better than a lot of quarterbacks in the National Football League.
Yeah, that's one part of the game.
I'll agree
the fact
with
that
you.
He struggles over the middle of the field makes it a lot harder on their passing game to succeed.
Yep, I agree. So
I do agree that especially like when he's throwing, he can drop some deep passes into buckets.
Yep.
On the boundary to Dodson Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. So that is very true. He's a great quarterback. He won a Super Bowl. Not necessarily an elite passer, but that obviously does not matter for fantasy football. My third is I'm calling this one the Egbuka Corollary. To stop overthinking the situations rookies are being drafted into. I've gotten better about this over the course of my time in Dynasty, but this was a pivotal mistake for me. I didn't have enough Emeka Egbuka, and I had the chance to potentially. I took Matthew Golden over him in one league. That hurts more than anything I've ever done. Well, that's not true. I took N'Keal Harry 101 in the rookie draft when I was in my first ever Dynasty rookie draft. But and since I've known what I was doing, this is the worst decision probably I've ever made. And it was all because I overthought a situation with old receivers and guys like Jalen McMillan, who kind of came in and were solid, but aren't necessarily like ever fading Egbuka even partially because of what Jalen McMillan did last year was bad process. They're and just overrating Godwin, not really knowing how severe his ankle injury was. Even if Mike Evans doesn't hurt his collarbone, I still think Egbuka has an incredible season. And obviously if Dynasty were playing longer for this year. So just stop overthinking the situations rookies are being drafted into. Quinshon Judkins, too. I overthought that one a little bit, although I do have a share of him in the one opportunity that I kind of had to get him. But Judkins was another one where I was afraid and kind of backing off of him because I was afraid of what that Brown situation would look like. And it turns out, they have an incredible defense, and they'll give the rock to Judkins 25 times a game.
Yep. No, I think you're spot on with this. I mean, Emeka Egbuka is a really good player. I think a couple things happened this year. Number one, I think Baker Mayfield wasn't completely healthy, especially toward the back half of the season. And I don't think he was completely healthy either, which contributed to his just massive drop off toward the back end of the season. So he's another guy that I'm still in on. The talent is there. I mean, he has everything you're looking for in an elite Dynasty asset. He has the size that we like, 6 foot, 200 pounds ish, elite route runner. So I'm not, if I have Emeka Egbuka, which I do in many, many leagues because of you, because of conversations like we had like this, And I did not like Matthew Golden. That was one take I actually got right. So I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be just fine. And I think you're right. The situation isn't as important. I mean, it's important, but if the guy is talented enough, I mean, especially in the case of Emeka Egbuka, I think he can overcome that. So my next lesson that I learned is I think that teams are getting a little bit smarter when it comes to preserving their star players and specifically star running backs. I think we saw this in the case of Christian McCaffrey this year. I was very much a proponent of trade Christian McCaffrey, right? And I did in several leagues, which probably contributed to the terrible year that I had. But I thought it was time to get out. You know, after the injury that he sustained last year, I didn't think that this was possible. But over 300 rushing attempts, 96 receptions, quarter or running back one overall, RB1 in fantasy points per game, just incredible for a 29-year-old running back. Now, I'll probably still be on top of a mountain telling you to trade Christian McCaffrey this year because I think we saw the same thing happen with Saquon last year. I mean, even if we think Christian McCaffrey is going to play well into his 30s, which he very well could, next year is probably just given the amount of touches, given the fact that they're going to be in the playoffs. I mean, he only averaged 3.9 yards a carry, but he scored 17 touchdowns and got an insane workload. So I would be wary of that still. But, you know, I was wrong in the sense that, you know, I traded Christian McCaffrey away. I thought it was time. Same thing with Jonathan Taylor, although he's younger. I didn't like the situation at all, which is another lesson, I suppose, I need to learn is that, you know, Sam Darnold's actually good and can support an elite pass catcher like Jackson Smith and Jigba. I was worried about that going into the season. And I was worried that Daniel Jones would not be good. I remember saying, I don't know what the Colts are doing. Anthony Richardson is the player with the most upside and can help the offense move in that direction. And clearly I was wrong and the Colts knew what they were doing. Unfortunately, Daniel Jones's season ended in an injury, but I think I rushed out too quick. Same thing with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had a pretty decent year, helped people, especially in the fantasy playoffs. So I think I was a little bit too quick to fade some of these veteran running backs. And in the future, I will be, especially when it comes to the elite options, like a Derrick Henry, like a CMC, I am going to hold on for as long as I can, unless I get just a Godfather offer. But that doesn't mean that this year won't be like I say all that to say it's probably going to be a good idea to trade Christian McCaffrey this offseason. So when we start making those videos, Christian McCaffrey is probably going to pop up. But what do you think, Mr. Babbage, and or time for your next takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, I agree again. I think there's still going off the trade Christian McCaffrey. I'm with you this year just because of his age and how many touches he had this year. But warning the audience, like, don't necessarily extrapolate that to every single veteran, you know, that smashed this year. Like, I'm not necessarily selling James Cook or Jonathan Taylor based off of touch volume this year. I think CMC is a big, I think opposite, maybe trade for Saquon Barkley.
Oh, yeah.
Be the same age as Christian McCaffrey was this year, I believe, going into next year and coming off of the high, which we usually after a season like that, we see that downturn. Shout out to Seth for calling that all off season. And now I think potentially we can buy an uptick with Saquon Barkley for win now teams. Next takeaway for me is age does not matter in the slightest for quarterbacks. I already knew this, but I wanted to reiterate it because you look at standard dynasty rankings and they still have the same kind of not really ageist, but slightly ageist rankings where Dak Prescott has always been way undervalued because of how old he is. And we keep talking about this. Like, we just saw Phillip Rivers come back and play football. Like, I'm sure Dak is going to survive another 4 years in this league. So just reiterating, stop overthinking age when it comes to quarterbacks. Even guys like, Jacoby Brissett, who's old or older, but like his value is going to be pretty low even already. He's probably going to start next year. Like, he's a guy I'm targeting right now. So just don't even really think about age when it comes to quarterbacks in Dynasty. If they're playing, they're worth something.
Yeah, and I saw the news too that it looks like the Falcons are going to release Kirk Cousins, and he's going to wind up somewhere, and he's going to be in a competition for a starting job. But with the way that he played, I mean, he's capable enough, I think, to start for an NFL team. I mean, if the Browns had Kirk Cousins, do you think that Kevin Stefanski's getting fired? I don't know. Kevin Stefanski, who has a history with Kirk Cousins. And anyway, I think Kevin Stefanski is some team's going to be real lucky to get him. But yeah, I think that these quarterbacks, especially the ones, that you talked about, look at what Matthew Stafford did this year, and there were all sorts of concerns about his back heading into the season. So I completely agree. You nailed that with Dak Prescott. My last takeaway here is, we talked about this in another show, and I put it in terms of, and I still don't know what the martial art is where you use somebody's momentum against them. But I think what we need to start doing is, and I might just write this down right now, is we need a narrative tracker for all the stupid shit that we see in the media. Like, Sam Darnold still is afraid of ghosts, or some stupid, like something dumb like that. Like, or when Sam Darnold gets signed, like, it's just the easy thing to do to bring all those clips of him with the Jets back, and he's the only quarterback, Sam Darnold, that has won back-to-back 14-game seasons. The only other quarterback to do that, Tom Brady. So I think Sam Darnold's a capable quarterback that we can depend on in Dynasty. If you have him as your quarterback too, I think you're happy with that. And same goes for other players at other positions that get prime opportunities. I mean, Javonte Williams, once upon a time, was a high pick in the second round by the Denver Broncos. So he gets drafted there, doesn't work out. Dallas signs him. We'll see if the Cowboys bring him back. But if you had Javonte Williams, if you stashed him, I mean, I'm sure he was, getting dropped, in some leagues, shallower leagues, once the Cowboys decided to go to in another, or the Broncos, once they decided to go in another direction. And then the last guy I'll bring up is Rico Dowdle. I'm sure, his value dropped off a cliff once he went to Carolina, and we all assumed that Chuba Hubbard was going to be the guy. And these are the guys that I look to target in my leagues, guys that their value tanks because there's no, I mean, either the opportunity is there for them, or, the narrative is against them for whatever reason. And in especially in the case of Sam Darnold, that didn't make any sense. I bought into it like an idiot. And because of that, I had no Jackson Smith and Jigba. I didn't go actively pursue JSN in trades because I thought, oh, Sam Darnold with a defensive coach, not really looking into Clint Kubiak's history as an offensive play caller. I actually did look into Clint Kubiak's offensive history as a play caller, but at the running back spot. And that's why I like Kenneth Walker so much. So I was wrong directionally with that. But what I should have been looking at is how good Sam Darnold was for the Vikings. I know he dropped off at the end, but I think we need to not be afraid of taking a shot on some of these retreads that are in prime positions where the narrative is, this guy sucks. Maybe not, but I know he's cheap now, so it's a good bet to make.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of going to like the Sam Darnold stuff. It kind of, honestly, all that kind of plays into what my last two kind of are, which are, it's possible for busts to become fantasy viable players, and then the low value trades can end up being massive value. So just take shots. And that fits right in with pretty much everything you just said, right? Like taking a look at Sam Darnold, Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle, a guy who did nothing and then, has this somewhat magical season with Dallas, goes to Carolina, and it should have been the bell cow all season, but wasn't lucky enough to have, I don't know. That was shame on Dave Canales. That was a really weird situation there. But regardless, I mean, Quentin Johnston, I called my last take the Quentin Johnston axiom, where he had a stretch during the middle of the season where it was rough. He had a hamstring injury. The offensive line was, very beat up, but for the most part, you definitely gained value on him. You gained value on Rico Dowdle, Javonte Williams, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones is another one. I mean, Geno Smith last year in particular, and Jacoby Brissett could be added to that list this year. Maybe even Kyler Murray, if he ends up going to a situation outside, fresh start outside of Arizona, as much crap as we give him, people are going to be extremely down on him this year. So depending on where he goes, that could even open up a door for a value on a guy like Kyler Murray, who people are going to label as done. So all in all, my last 2 points kind of just roll straight up into yours.
Yeah. I completely agree on the Kyler Murray thing. I mean, we are not pro Kyler Murray, but I think the distinction we need to make is that everybody has a price point, and it becomes advantageous for your dynasty team to be pro a certain player at a certain price. And Kyler Murray is already, his value is just completely tanking. I don't know what it is on Keep Trade Cut right now, but it can't be great. But I will say this, Cliff Kingsbury also not with the Washington Commanders anymore. So I don't know exactly where he's going to wind up. Maybe there could be a potential reunion with wherever he goes. Who knows? That could be good for Kyler Murray. You just never know what's going to happen. And I think Kyler Murray is actually the perfect example because the narrative on him is he's too short. How many GIFs or whatever the kids call them are out there? Memes. That's what the kids call them. Memes are out there of Kyler Murray as the thing from Star Wars, the miniature creatures from Star Wars, the Ewoks. So anyway, there's a bunch of people and guys in your dynasty leagues are going to give you these opportunities every single year. The guys who, they know better than anybody, and they're going to be the first ones who are going to be rushing out to trade the guy who had a bad season or got injured or whatever the case may be. And it's up to us to teach you, to tell you, to, instill the confidence in you to go out and acquire these players when their value is low. There's a reason why the evaluation was high on a player like Kyler Murray. There's a reason why he was the number 1 overall pick. Was he is that the pick that you and I would have made? No, probably not. But hey, there somebody saw something in him at one point in time. We know he's mobile. I don't know why he doesn't run around more, to be honest with you. But nevertheless, the point is, don't be afraid of taking shots on those guys. And I think that this might be the fastest episode we have made it through our entire show sheet. I'm honestly not sure what to do. I think maybe I should turn it to you for words of wisdom at this point. I think that's what we normally do.
Yeah. I think my last words of wisdom before we broke for the holiday was to recharge and spend some of that time, use the holiday, spend time with family, recharge, share a little love around the world. So hopefully you did that. And my words of wisdom today, I guess, are it's time for rookie season. The time is now. Yep. Most leagues, the average league, your league mates are not really going to be in tune with the rookie class until the NFL draft. But the NFL draft has a lot of faults in terms of where we evaluate our players. And even vets like Seth and I will succumb to that every now and then. Me with Matthew Golden this year is an example. I let the NFL get me too excited of Matthew Golden. it's this time now, the Senior Bowl, the previous reviews, and looking into the film. Seth and I have a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be doing, but now's the time to know names. And even if you're just watching some YouTube cut-ups and reading some excerpts from some people you trust, that's better than nothing, because you're going to want to have some sort of opinion on these people before the combine and the NFL draft, and pro days, which are all, there's some good information there, especially the draft capital that we learned, but there's a lot of, fugazi things out there, like working out in shorts and watching, the quarterback that throws the 65-yard dime, on air to his college receiver. And we, the Zach Wilson thing where we all lost our minds in 2021. So there's a lot to avoid. There's a lot of noise in draft season. If you start now and you start building up your opinions on these players, you'll have more success in your rookie drafts because you'll have more conviction.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And again, when it comes to that narrative, the narrative's going to take over. The draft capital is going to take over, at some point. I mean, like it's not going to happen right now, but we all know, like, once March, early April hits, that's all anybody's talking about. That's all that's on ESPN, blah, blah, blah. And it's our job to sort of sift through the noise and go, no, here's the tape. Here are the metrics. Here's how those metrics and how this particular profile, how it projects into the future to the best of our ability. So we're going to be doing that for you. And I've already done some of it. There's a Jeremiah Love video up on the channel right now that you can go check out, all 22 and all. So click the like button on this video, subscribe, go check out that video. And there's going to be more content dropping, YouTube shorts, some shorter form videos. We have all sorts of cool stuff planned, so you're going to want to be tapped into that. And before we go, I hope I'm not breaking any news, but it's just occurring to me that we haven't mentioned it yet. And since he's been a guest on this program, I did just want to shout out briefly Memphis Young.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that. Yeah,
I did too. It's my fault, and that happened over the holiday, over our break. And Memphis, I think, appeared on the Dynasty Roundtable a couple times. And if you didn't know Memphis, I'm sorry, because he was an awesome, awesome dude. Genuinely, there's nobody nicer. And he passed away over the holidays. And when I saw that, my heart, it's one of those where your heart just drops in your chest, and you can't believe it, because I mean, I remember being at the draft house with them when I was with Player Profiler, talking with them. I mean, being on the couch with them. I mean, I'm pretty sure we were sitting right there on draft night talking about what the hell were we talking about? Some prospect. I think Jonathan Brooks, how we thought that was a really good fit at the time. I think we were talking about that. But seriously, nobody nicer. There's no better dude that you can meet than Memphis. And it's just, it's heartbroken to see that. And Matt, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, every time we talk to him, right? Like, and we had him as a guest, a few times over the course of the podcast, him and Jerry both at times. And every time he would come on, he would ask us, about our lives, and we get into these conversations, and you can immediately tell, like, he wasn't just saying that for small talk. Like he was genuinely interested in like what you had going on in life outside of fantasy football, like what drove you. And he was always just the nicest, kindest guy that I had interacted with. And it was super heartbreaking to see that, and having him as a guest was an absolute honor. He certainly has shaped the way, we think about the game. He has influenced us greatly in that. And what I loved most about having him as a guest is he would come in and he wouldn't just like answer the questions and we would move on. Like he would say, well, Seth, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And he would always say, like, I don't want to commandeer the show. And we're like, no. Like it's the best interaction. Like he would get so deeply ingrained with what you were doing, and he treated it as if it were one of his own shows in terms of, how much effort he gave, and, just really trying to challenge us on the spot and trying to, really bring the best out of all three of us or all four of us if we were with Jerry at the time. And so it was an honor to know him. It was an honor to be able to work alongside him. And, it's just absolutely heartbreaking. We should put the GoFundMe link in the description if you feel so inclined. Even just a little bit goes a long way. It's you can't imagine, I can't imagine what it's like to just all of a sudden, lose a member of the family, and what that's like, picking up the pieces and attending to everything that needs to be attended to, especially, with the mom now looking after two sons, and it's just a tragic situation. So if you can, please help out that family. They definitely deserve it.
Yeah, I will track down that link. It'll be in the description of this video. RIP Memphis Young, truly one of the best Dynasty analysts to ever do it. So just a complete tragedy, and we're all heartbroken over here. So anyway, I know it's been a few weeks, or I'm not exactly sure how long, but wanted to mention it at the end of the show. So until next time, be good, everybody. Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. They shouldn't be in the playoffs. The stupid Ravens missed a field goal. Anyway, I hope the Texans kill them. Anyway, nobody cares. Have a good night, day, whatever part of your day that you're in, and we will see you later. Bye-bye, everybody.